and then they have a patch, and that there's an emblem of this. This one was conceived as a patch used by the Jedi Aces that one of the aging Aces would have given to Anakin after he arrived at the temple, after he destroyed the droid control ship, to be like, hey, good job, kid. And he puts it in, and Anakin makes a comment, and then he saves it, right? So it's all souvenir
really cool
stuff. And it just goes on and on like that. But not only is the artifact stuff the most fun, but I think for fans, they'll really get into, I hope they will, but really get into the lore. I tried as much as possible to include existing stuff that was, canon or EU canon, not contradicting any of it, but also making new stuff and reinterpreting it and adding to the lore as much as possible. I really hope that fans, especially super fans with EU who really know Star Wars, would read this and be like, oh wow, that's new, or I didn't know that, or oh, that's a really cool detail.
Yeah, it looks like a really detailed and fun book. It looks like it's not really just for kids or for people who just want to know the basics. It's into some really interesting detail.
That's
really
that's
cool.
something that I would try to do too, because a lot of times with a book like this, the publisher might be like, well, you don't want to keep it too detailed, and I get that, right? But at the same time, I don't want somebody who buys it, who really knows it, be like, oh, I've seen all of this before, because that's so frustrating. If you pay money for a book, you want to get something out of it that you don't know.
Yeah, like the EU fans like us.
Yeah, seriously. So there's actually a lot of EU stuff in here. I always try to do new stuff, If we were doing, new designs of starfighters that have never appeared anywhere before, or, collecting a lot of old lore, or, there's stuff in here about Padawan braids and about, if you don't have any hair, what do you do, right? Mm-hmm. So there's the Ahsoka thing from the Clone Wars, but then there's a paragraph in here about other species and the type of stuff that they do in order to do that. The Jedi Masters I've created in here are all new characters who existed about 1,000 years ago, and so there's a lot of references to the lore of that time period, right? So and then this is a Drawl, a Jedi Padawan that's from the Drawl species, and it's very funny, like little interesting
great pictures.
The art is really good. There's actually 10 artists in total who did stuff, and as you can see, they did really great stuff from simple diagrams to more portrait stuff, more action stuff, and there's a variety of styles. And I would think there's one bit in here that was really kind of new that I thought was fun to do, was the whole thing about the Jedi Trials. Mm-hmm. I never really got what the Jedi Trials were. Like, they've never really been very explicit about it, and there have been hints about what it is. But I really try to be explicit about what they are. Here's what the Jedi Trials are. Here's what they consist of. They're not always going to be exactly the same, but this is the structure, and you have to do these things in order to pass them. Because I thought this was a great opportunity to kind of get rid of the ambiguity of what it was all about. But like these are things. This was the predecessor to the Chuanthor from the Courtship of Princess Leia, that crashed ship. So this would have been before that ship was built, but we kind of tie it in and we sort of show how it led to the other.
That's great.
I think people that really know a lot about the EU will get the jokes. There's a lot of references to things that are sort of foreshadowing or something like that, and I think they'll really like that kind of stuff. These are new characters. This is the Jedi Battle Master. He's an Anks, remember Anks species, and the Jedi Seers and things. This is stuff like they had done a portrait of a Kamasi, right? Mm-hmm. And so I'm always trying to find more stuff, because I was talking about the Kamasi and how they influenced the history of the Jedi in terms of like negotiation and that. So somebody drew this picture, I forget which artist it was, but I was like, okay, well there's an opportunity. So this is a Hespecia Tikla, the Kamasi Lago who inspired the Jedi approach to justice. So this is the Kamasi. There's a bit of lore that the Jedi learned their approach to justice from the Kamasi. I think Zahn came up with it. So they specifically learned it from this guy, right? Who's a new character, and this is his portrait. And these are opportunities. It's just a caption, right? But that's an opportunity to tie it back 25,000 years ago and tie together a bunch of different pieces of lore. This is actually a reference to a old West End games module called Galaxy Guide 8 Scouts, this levitation of stones thing. So I mean, it was a great opportunity, and I really think people that know Star Wars are gonna like it the most because, like I said, it's almost like you get all the jokes.
Yeah. Yeah,
and it even goes off into transcending death, which was an interesting section to write because I'd originally written it that about disappearing, and then Lucas was kind of like, no, they don't know about the disappearing because Qui-Gon learns it, and I'm like, actually they know about it in Tales of the Jedi. You know, Nomi Sunrider's husband disappears, and in so they disappear, and so, and there's like 10 examples where somebody disappears, and so I almost had to come up with it that at some point the knowledge would have been lost. By the time this book was written 1,000 years ago, maybe they didn't understand how to do it anymore, and it became more of an urban legend almost. And then, so I did that. And then Luke comes in, and he's like, no, I know they disappear. I've seen it happen. I've seen it happen a lot. And so Luke actually graffitis this whole section like, wow, this is all incomplete, and here's what I know about that. It was the only way we could make it work within the strictures that they were given to us.
Really great. Now, I just have one more question. I noticed that in the beginning, the names were all black except for Qui-Gon and Sidious, and I'm wondering, is that intentional? Because I know Sidious is obviously the Sith, so Qui-Gon is kind of a little rogue.
Yeah.
So was that intentional, or I was just curious?
That's an awesome thing. I wish it was intentional. It wasn't on my part, but I really like it. I didn't have a good sense of how they were going to do the typefaces. They kind of came up with them. Darth Sidious as this sort of spidery red typeface, I think totally works. I totally get that.
Yeah, I love that.
Qui-Gon as in that, I think that's really interesting because I do talk in here a little bit about his philosophy of the sort of gray Jedi philosophy and how that's different. You know, it's a different kind of thing. It's actually, we talk about that in the back about threats to Jedi teaching and threats to orthodoxy, right? And Qui-Gon would be one of those guys, right? But I don't know why they picked the ink that they did. I think they're trying to make it look good. I have to point out that originally I think they had written this as Count Dooku. And I was like, well, when he was a kid, he wasn't Count Dooku, you know?
Right,
like, he wouldn't sign his name Count Dooku.
I believe, didn't he have to like relinquish that when he became a Jedi?
He did, yeah. And so I think I went through the whole thing, and I had written all these Dooku comments, and I think the first draft that said Count Dooku, and I was like, no, you can't do that. And then I think at some point they were suggesting that it be abbreviated to CD, and I'm like, no, that's worse. No, it just should be Dooku. That's just his name. He's still like a teenager. He's like 12. I figured he has this boy by the time he's like, I don't know, he's like 9 to like 17 or something like that. It's actually, I worked it on it here, but most of these comments were written when they were relatively young.
Well, thank you very much for taking the time to talk to us about the Jedi Path. When does it come out?
It comes out on September 28th. It is only going to be sold through Amazon. This is an Amazon exclusive product. Next year they might come out with one that's just the book itself without the removables in the case, but I don't know the details on that. Right now you can only get this on Amazon.com, so you have to go to Amazon, you have to search for Jedi Path. They have photos on there, they have a movie trailer for the book on there, and if I'm remembering correctly, Amazon is listing this whole package for $99, but they're actually selling it for $62.
Wow, that's great.
So yeah, go on and you can pre-order it now. And yeah, thanks.
Thanks
for letting me talk about it.
Yeah, I'll definitely be picking up a copy. It looks like a really great book. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, man.